The old Ford hums a low, steady E-flat, a drone note that's been the bass line of my life for 50 years. The Wanderer, I call her. Her rhythm section is the metronomic thump of tires on highway seams, a beat I know better than my own faltering heart. A sympathetic rattle from a guitar case in the back adds the hi-hat, a loose, shuffling percussion. We've been a three-piece band for more miles than the odometer can recall. The only member who can't hold a tune anymore is me. I try to hum along, just a simple melody that found me somewhere on the Nebraska plains, a lifetime ago. A tune about dust and distance. It starts in my head, clear and strong, a warm baritone that knows its way around a campfire and a half-empty bottle of whiskey. But the bridge between mind and mouth is broken. The air hits my vocal cords and splinters. No rich baritone, just a jagged, breathless wheeze, like a bow dragged across a string that snapped years ago. It cracks and shatters on a note that used to be my sweet spot, the one that could make a crowded room go still. I stop, swallowing dust. The silence that rushes in to fill the space is louder and more damning than the failure itself. The steering wheel is worn smooth as a river stone beneath my hands, a testament to a life spent holding on and heading somewhere else. My entire world is framed by this windshield. Today, it's the endless expanse of the heartland, a canvas of pale sky stretched over bone-dry earth. I've seen this country in every light, through every season. I've watched its towns wither and its highways metastasize. I've slept in its rest stops, eaten in its diners, and left a piece of my soul in every corner bar that would have me. All for the song. It was always for the song. This is the last time. The map on the passenger seat is a spiderweb of ink, a cartography of my own ghosts. Red lines trace the path from coast to coast, a final pilgrimage to the little towns that paid me in applause and whiskey. Most of the route is behind me now, a string of fading memories. Each stop was a quiet haunting, a place where I once sang my heart out to a handful of strangers. But a singer without a voice is just a man with a ghost in his throat, a story he can no longer tell. My mind is still a concert hall. The lyrics are all there, etched into the walls, sharp and clear. The melodies rise and fall with perfect pitch. And here, I am timeless. I can still hit the high, aching note in Sarah's lament. I can hold the final, fading chord of River of Roads until the whole room holds its breath with me. I can feel the vibration of the strings in my bones, the singular warmth of a stage light on my face. The memories are so vivid they feel more real than the asphalt shimmering in the heat ahead. But what good is a song trapped in your skull? What good is a story if you've lost a voice to tell it? I'm driving east, chasing the sunrise, but it feels like I'm driving into a long, quiet twilight. I was never looking for fame. That ship sailed without ever knowing my name was on the manifest. I was just looking for an echo, a sign that all those nights, all those songs, weren't just notes scattered on the wind. I just need to know they landed somewhere, that they mattered, even a little. The sign for Harmony Creek appears like a mirage. The name feels like a gentle joke from a universe with a dry sense of humor. I remember this place. I played a tavern here, just off the square. The Rusty String, they called it. A good name for a place that welcomed a man with a sixth string and a story to burn. The Wanderer's engine coughed its final complaint as I turned the key. The constant, low hum of the road was gone, and the silence it left behind felt heavier than any noise. I stepped out of the van, my joints protesting with a chorus of creaks and groans. The air smelled different, not of hay and damp earth, but of roasted coffee beans and something vaguely floral. Where the Rusty String once stood, with its peeling paint and a buzzing neon sign that flickered like a dying heartbeat, there was now a cafe. All clean lines and polished glass. The daily grind. A chalkboard on the sidewalk advertised something called a lavender latte. I felt a familiar ache settle deep in my chest, the kind that has nothing to do with old age, and everything to do with time's relentless erosion. I went inside. The aggressive hiss of an espresso machine had replaced the cheerful clinking of beer mugs. Young people sat hunched over laptops, their faces illuminated by an ethereal blue light, headphones sealing them in their own private, silent worlds. No one looked up. 50 years ago, on this very spot, I stood on a makeshift stage no bigger than a tabletop. I'd just written a song on the back of a napkin, a tune about a farmer watching the dust steal his land, watching his future blow away particle by particle. Dust Bowl Lullaby, I called it. I can still feel the worn Martin guitar against my shirt, the way my voice, strong and clear back then, filled every smoky corner of that room. I remember a woman in the front row, her face etched with a worry so familiar it could have been my own mother's. When I finished, the whole place was so quiet you could hear a heart break. Then the applause. It wasn't a roar. It was warm, grateful. It was the sound of understanding, of connection. I sat down at a small, cold metal table, the ghost of that applause still ringing in my ears. I tried to hum the opening bars of a lullaby, just for myself. A dry, pathetic rasp was all that came out. A stranger's cough. My throat tightened, not with emotion, but with the simple, physical betrayal of it all. The song was still in here, perfect and whole inside my head. But it was trapped, a prisoner in a failing body. The barista called out a name. Chardonnay. The sound sharp and sterile in the quiet room. I looked around at the unfamiliar faces, at the ghost of a tavern that lived only in my memory. The connection I felt that night, the meaning I thought I had woven into the very air of this place, it was gone. Paved over and replaced with something new that had no room for an old man's songs. I was just a tourist visiting a town that no longer existed, haunted by a voice I could no longer hear. I left the ghost of my voice in that coffee shop and headed back to the Wanderer. The key in the ignition felt like turning a page back to the only story I had left. The engine coughed, sputtered, then settled into its low, rumbling hum. My only faithful rhythm. We pulled out onto the highway, deciding to leave Harmony Creek and its ghosts behind. The road is a lonely place, but it's an honest loneliness. It doesn't pretend to be a crowded room, full of connection. It's just asphalt and distance. For years, I measured my life in those miles, thinking each one brought me closer to something. Now, it felt like I was just driving away from the man I used to be. A song is a fragile thing. You breathe it into the air, and for 3 minutes it lives. It fills the space between strangers. Then it's gone. And what's left? Just the ringing in your own ears. A memory of a melody that no one else remembers. The fuel gauge was flirting with empty, a needle hovering over the void. On the edge of town, I pulled off at a desolate exit, the only sign of life a single gas station buzzing under a halo of fluorescent light. The air smelled of gasoline and the coming rain. I stood by the pump, the rhythmic clicking as the numbers climbed, feeling like a metronome for a song I couldn't write. A man in greasy overalls walked out of the service bay, wiping his hands on a red rag. He was my age, maybe older, with eyes that had seen a lot of busted engines and broken promises. He squinted at me through the chemical twilight. "Hey," he said, his voice a low, gravelly thing. "I know you." I just nodded, a weary, familiar gesture. I get that sometimes. A face people think they've seen on a forgotten album cover in a dusty thrift store bin. He took a step closer, undeterred by my silence. "You played here. A long, long time ago. Not here, but in town. At a Grange Hall, for a summer dance." He paused, his eyes unfocused, searching the past. "You sang a song about a man building a boat with his own 2 hands. Said he was going to sail it right out of the Dust Bowl." The memory hit me like a forgotten chord, vibrating through my entire body. Noah's Dust. I hadn't thought of that song in 40 years. I wrote it in a motel in Oklahoma, watching the wind peel the paint off a fence, feeling like the whole world was about to be scoured clean. I managed a dry, cracked whisper. "I remember." He smiled, a slow, genuine thing that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "My wife, Sarah, she loved that song. After our first boy was born, Things were hard. Real hard. We were losing everything that year. The drought took the crops. The bank was coming for the rest. But Sarah, at night, when the house was too quiet, she'd hum it. Just that melody. Kept the panic down. "Build the boat, John," she'd whisper. "Just build the boat." It was our song, I guess. We never knew the name of it. Just the boat song. The pump clicked off, the sudden silence deafening. He looked at me, his eyes clear and direct. "She passed last spring. But my boy, he hums it to his own kid now. Doesn't even know where it came from. Just a tune his grandma used to hum." He nodded once, a gesture of shared, unspoken history, then turned and walked back into the garage, leaving me standing in the buzzing glow of the station. I got back in the van, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. I didn't start the engine. I just sat there, listening to the silence. It wasn't empty anymore. In the quiet, I could hear it. A faint, distant echo. The sound of a song, living a life I never knew it had. Passed down like a family story, a lullaby whispered from one generation to the next. I turned the van around. I drove back into Harmony Creek, the mechanic's impossible kindness, a compass, pointing me back to the town square. The song wasn't mine anymore. Maybe it never was. A song isn't a possession. It's a seed you cast into the wind. You don't get to choose where it lands, or what it becomes. In the center of town was a small, green square with a white-painted gazebo. Families were out, enjoying the last of the afternoon. Children chased pigeons near a fountain, and old men sat on benches, watching the world go by with the patient stillness of trees. My first instinct was to keep driving, to flee the ghost of my voice. But the mechanic's words were a quiet countermelody. The song has its own life. I parked the Wanderer, pulled my old Martin from its case, and walked to an empty bench under a large maple tree. I didn't have a microphone. I didn't have an audience. I just had the worn wood of the guitar and the muscle memory in my fingers. My throat was a locked door, but my hands still held the key. I began to play. Not a song with soaring vocals, but a simple, instrumental piece I'd written long ago. A quiet waltz, circular and steady. I let the rhythm sink with the fountain splash, matching the town's own breath. No vocals to hide behind anymore. Just wood, wire, and bone letting the notes drift outward, not as a demand for attention, but as an offering. I kept my eyes open this time. I watched as a young woman pushing a stroller slowed her pace, her head tilted slightly, as if listening to a half-forgotten dream. A man walking his dog stopped for a moment, his hand resting on the dog's head, both of them still. I wasn't a performer on a stage. I was just part of the scenery, like the rustling leaves or the splashing fountain. I was adding a sound to the day, a thread of melody woven into the town's quiet tapestry. When the last note faded, there was no applause. There was only the gentle continuation of the afternoon. The pigeons, the fountain, the quiet conversation. A few people offered small, knowing smiles as they passed. It was more than enough. As I was placing my guitar back in its case, a young woman, maybe a college student with a backpack full of books, approached me. "Excuse me," she said, her voice soft. "I don't mean to bother you. I just wanted to say, that was really beautiful." It sounded familiar, like something from a long time ago. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, my throat too tight to form a word. She smiled. "Well, thank you for playing it." She turned and walked away, rejoining the flow of the afternoon, leaving me there on the bench. She didn't know my name. She didn't know the song. But the music had reached her. It had stirred a memory of a memory, an echo, and I finally understood. My legacy was never going to be my voice, captured on a record or remembered by name. It was this, the space between the notes, a quiet feeling left behind in the heart of a stranger, a tune hummed by a man to his grandson, who doesn't even know where it came from.